great to be with everybody today. So, been, as Courtney mentioned, I've been on the West Side, African American community for 17 and a half years. And it's been, you know, a challenge in a lot of different ways, but also, I think, incredibly, meaningful for me and for, I think, the community as we've really looked at, the space that we have. So probably 9, 10 years ago now, we had to close our school at the parish, mainly because of, mainly because of the number of charter schools that were being established in the area, and parents saw that as a viable alternative. Didn't always work out that way for them, but anyway, we ended up having to close the school. And so for the parish, it was a matter of how do we, what do we do with this space? What do we focus on? And it really was, from parish leadership, this call to say, okay, let's continue education in some way, and formation, focused on, the parish and the community around us, on in North Lawndale particularly, where we are at, and to figure out how do we use the space in a way that enhances our outreach, not just to youth or not just to parents, but to youth and parents, and other adults as well, in a meaningful way, so that we're not just doing a kind of a patchwork thing, but we are really trying to create a holistic approach to working with families in the community. So not just the youth, but the youth and the parents together. Parents, when we've done parenting classes, which Derek and his wife do. When we do those sorts of things, we always bring the kids in and again work with them and the parents to again strengthen the home life, the communication in the home, and increase peaceful conflict resolution in the home. So the path we've really taken is to look at programs that we want to develop as a parish, that would be unique to what we that would probably not be offered by another social service in the area, and so we really were looking at ways to incorporate restorative justice in a deeper way. We've been involved in restorative justice work probably for the last 13, 14 years. But after closing the school, it really became, how do we focus on restorative justice in context of family, in the context of the greater community, and continue to enhance that. So over the course of time, we've hosted different programs that have worked particularly with returning citizens or with those who are most at risk on the street. So we've partnered with an organization called North Lawndale Employment Network to sponsor what is called the READY program, which worked with mainly young men from the community, again high at risk, to work with them on some life skills work and those sorts of things, but also to help them to change their mind frame in terms of being on the streets, and instead looking toward employment and caring for their children and those sorts of things. So we did a lot. We did a lot in terms of we did a lot in terms of the for that program, but we also then have been involved in bringing in a technology lab that we have established, that has particularly been focused on youth in the community, 16 and older, in journalism, to support them in terms of journalism and broadcasting and social media marketing, and it's a way that we've been able to help youth in the community in terms of really like both reading skills and writing skills, also in terms of creative thinking and different ways to enhance their abilities that affected not just in being involved in this after-school program and summer program, but also to be able to carry that into their regular schoolwork and those sorts of things. So, and the great thing is we were able to pay them to go for going to class. So, so that has benefited many youth in the community over the last 7-8 years now, and that's been a real gift, and we continue to look at ways to use the tech lab, for other in other ways to benefit the overall community. We host a music program called Music Incorporated that it's focused heavily on youth in terms of teaching them wind and stringed instruments and then becoming part of an orchestra. The reason we partner with that group is because they are very focused on parent involvement, and for us, again, it's that parent connection that we think is so important to make sure that is there. The last couple of years, we've taken on a solar training program that is leasing space from us that offers a 15-week, really values-based solar installation training program for men and women in the community. Typically, a lot of the people involved are formerly incarcerated, so it's a way for them to, again, earn a legal wage and a pretty decent legal wage, but over the course of 15 weeks, learning all the skills they need to do both installation, but also a broader sense of, that's based in faith and based in, a sense of the environment and all those sorts of things. So, and so far we've graduated about 3 classes, each with 25 students. Every one of them who has gotten a job, for $35 to $40 an hour. And then, in addition to that, we've got a mentoring program that we host that employs 10 part-time mentors, all from the community. Many who have been involved in the justice system, but who are now positive influence in the community, and who are connecting with various residents in the community to again build relationship first, and then to hopefully engage in actually community organizing down the line. But the group hosts a dinner every other Monday evening, and we typically get about 70 to 90 people that come, share a meal, and then they break into small circles, conversation circles, to talk about different issues affecting the community. We've introduced things in regard to mental health counseling and dealing with trauma, and are looking at other ways to really engage people and building the basic relationships that then form a foundation for community organizing eventually that will hopefully bring about some change needed in the community that will take some power to be able to enact. So it's kind of the overall scope of things. We continue to look at ways to partner with other groups and to try to do that. I'm going to turn over to Derek now to talk about the restorative justice piece and what he does, and also what his wife does as well.
How you all doing? I'm Derek Brown. I run the Restorative Justice Department at St. Agatha. And what we do, we go inside of schools, facilitate circles, do a lot of mediation with conflicts, try to catch violence or anything on the front end before it happened. But if anything shall occur through the schools and throughout the community, we do facilitate peace circles inside of St. Agatha as well. We do a parenting class as well, and in order to get parents to get involved, Father Larry switched the name, and so instead of telling parents like you need a parenting class or would you like to take a parenting class, a lot of parents take offense to it. So we switched the name and call it would you like to sit down and facilitate a session with us from stress to be blessed. And that technique seems a lot easier, a lot informative, and make it a lot easier for community parents and community members to be involved. So we do these classes throughout the community, also at St. Agatha Church. We facilitate circles, mentorship, and fatherhood classes inside of Cook County Jail, where we deal with a lot of young men that's going through some things. Also, we provide resources for when the guys get out. It's really simple, but a lot of times, when you got people that's incarcerated and have no understanding or have no knowledge of what they can do to change, we just provide resources, something that they really can do themselves. But again, a lot of people, a lot of young men don't know where to turn, don't know where to look. So we be that safety net for these young men for when they get out. We help them get IDs. Again, we have them to return to repeat the parenting classes as well. And a lot of these experiences come from myself. It's like when I joined the gang at 13. I went to the penitentiary at 17. I ran a gang, and through all that turmoil, I never had an outlet. There was nobody it was nobody that I can go to that like myself that understood the things that I was going through. But again, we use that at St. Agatha as credibility, as the bridge the gap between youth out on the streets and that are incarcerated. Did I leave anything out, Father Larry? Oh, and also I do a lot of the parenting classes, and now we're also inside the schools with my wife as well.
So a lot of the outreach is, again, working with parents, and what I term usually empowering parents to support each other along the way. And Heather and Derek are involved, very heavily in that. One of the things that I talk about is, we talk about oftentimes about empowering people, and I'm choosing not to use that particular phrase or that single word, because I really think it implies that I've got something you need and you don't have anything to offer me. When in reality, from a Christian perspective, someone is actually gifting me by accepting my gifts, that I want to offer them. And so there's a sense that we lift each other up, along the way, rather than, I'm bending over and lifting you up. This is more of a, like, how do we lift each other up and really recognize, that this is what we're called to do, as Christians, and what we do for another, it's a choice. Obviously, we all have free will, but it's also a mandate of our faith. So, if someone is willing to accept our gifts, then they are actually helping us as well. So I think it's just changing that mindset of how do we help others? How do we help them to lift themselves up? When in reality, we hopefully do this together. We do it, if possible, in building relationships first, and then figuring out what's the best way to help another person to see that they have the potential within them already, to engage and work through issues, but to just kind of help them to lift them up to a sense of real dignity. We do some basic programs, in terms of food pantry and and sometimes rental assistance and utility assistance, and those things are important, obviously, but a real focus is on a sense of real social justice and helping people improve their lives, and claiming their God-given dignity and pursuing and hopefully fulfilling their God-given potential and purpose in life.
Father Larry, you are doing so many wonderful things there, and I know this has been taken, over the course of time. So I'm curious if you could go back and tell us a little bit of the story about the transition, since there are so many parishes that are closing right now and have space that could be utilized for many of these programs. But there had to have been a lot of work at the beginning as far as how did you transition a parish into you and giving up this space and turning it over and opening it up to the community. So I'm curious about the pushback inside the parish, but also how did you introduce it and welcome the community in, you know, and having it come into your space. And I think that we've got a slide that shows kind of how you basically move the parish. I could just hear a lot of people getting very excited about this is sacred space. To me that looks very sacred because it's in full utilization and it's the outside coming in. But I'm just curious, that's a lot of movement.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, the space that we have, you know, it is an adaptive space. We used to have an old church that was beautiful, and people still cry when they talk about it. But you know, the space really, you know, with classrooms and with the wide open space that we have to work with, has really allowed us to, you know, to adapt, you know, along the way in in a number of different ways to be able to provide the space and from my perspective, it's more of an intimate space than your standard church building. But I mean, I think any space can be adapted, in a way that, again, makes people feel comfortable, and opens them up to, conversations that sometimes are difficult conversations, courageous conversations. And so how do we support that? And then how do we support other groups in the community that are, trying to do good work? Over the course of the last, 7, 8 years, we've helped establish a new, a free mental health clinic in North Lawndale. We were part of the whole effort, to establish the first restorative justice court in Chicago, in our area. And so, I think partnering with other organizations that, provide services and things like that, have been, extremely important. Those partnerships have, really helped. And then, how do we continue to, partner with those groups, support what they're doing, have them support what we're doing, and then figure out ways to, to enhance that. So it's not unusual for a group to reach out, to the parish and say, do you have any space we can use for, a particular event or whatever, and if possible, we try to, support that. We're also, I mean, I think the transition and, I think for the parishioners, when we closed the school, it was mainly, we want to do something with the space. And the parish in a lot of ways for many years has been involved heavily in, community outreach. And, there's a long tradition of that here. And so, just kind of continuing that, had a bumpy period when I first, before I came, with a priest who had been abusing kids, and we've managed to regain trust in the community and rebuild out of that. So that's been helpful along the way, and then just looking at different groups that we're beginning to host a group that's working with returning citizens in terms of jobs and housing placement and accompaniment. That we're in the beginning process. Actually, class will be starting in a couple of weeks with that, and then other programs that we may be able to accommodate that would be helpful for the community. Just to try to be an open space for people to use along the way. With our unification with the other church with St. Mark Forest, I think the challenge is where at the one church there was not has not been this heavy community engagement. How does that translate? And how do we really enhance the ministry or expand the ministry? Basically, it's to the whole west side of Chicago, and the Black community of Chicago, and that's going to be the challenge for the next pastor, and along the way. But I think those are the challenges, but it's also opportunity really to imagine and be creative and all those sorts of things. The one thing I will caution is, we've run into, situations that I know Derek's run into this with boxing out negativity with, government grants, that are vouchered and the payments don't come for 3 to 6 months, and so upfronting the money and all that kind of stuff. So there's definitely some learning from that in terms of establishing programs, to make sure that you've got the necessary supports in place, to handle those contingencies, and probably leaning more toward, if we're opening space and we're wanting to add dash space, are there other organizations that have their own, administrative, supports that can, just, want to leave space in the building, but are still offering something that is consistent with the mission of the parish, which is to focus on whole family, and support around youth and parents and returning citizens.
Father Larry, you're talking about with the community, and there were some specific questions that were asked more just on the logistics. How was there any issues you had to deal with the archdiocese as far as how you go through the steps of repurposing space, and because taking a sacred space and then opening.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So I mean, in terms of renting space or leasing space, that all has to go through the diocese and all that, and it's been relatively straightforward. I mean, and so really have very few problems with that. The diocese, again, it's a check and balance, but there's not been any resistance, to it. They see the work that we're doing. They see, the importance of work. Unfortunately, we're probably only one of 2 parishes in Chicago that are doing, this significant amount of work, in terms of community, actually mutual empowerment, and which saddens me because I think the potential is great, especially as parishes unify. But it's just not, it's one of my struggles sometimes with Catholic churches. We do a lot of great social outreach, but in terms of social justice and mutual empowerment, we still have a long way to go.
In some of the programs that you have, specifically the solar program, they had the idea, they had all the resources to run the program, they just needed a space.
Right.
And so it was, you provided that opportunity to take that off. So was that an issue as far as, contract wise, as far as how do you negotiate that with,
right. So, I mean, the diocese has standard, rental, space, qualifications, things like that. So there's there's a contract that is signed. I mean, I think the key for us from the parish perspective was, first of all, knowing that, we had the space and it's a program that we want, mainly because they are, faith-based, and they, are very consistent with, not only with the classes, but really accompanying these the graduates for up to 2 years, as they get established in their new jobs. So it's a real commitment, and and again the whole sense of faith and building a team, building some relationships within the class, but also that sense of every class involves kind of the beginning of talking about a different value that encourage incorporating people's lives. So that's for me, that was the attraction. There are a number of different programs that like this out there, but this group in particular impressed me with their commitment, their passion, about really kind of like the person and persons, but also the greater sense of the environment and all that.
Derek, you're, coming from the community, it sounds like, Father Larry, you've accomplished a lot by just overcoming the hurdle of allowing a healing to take place from the previous administration there at the church. So that was one step. How did you build community, and how do you encourage the community to become involved in utilizing the space? Making it feel like this is open. It's just not Catholics welcome.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a very good question. So it really was a kind of like meeting with different heads of agencies and groups. Building relationship with local police. Aldermen. You know, commissioner. State senators and representatives. All those sorts of things. And just kind of like. Uh, Showing them, the commitment that the parish had obviously to heal, but to, regain trust with the community overall. And, over time, again, it's about relationships. It's about, getting to know people. It's about, them seeing your motivation and passion passion of parishioners. We did a lot of door to door when I first got here, and I think people were surprised at that. In the community, it's like, what are the Catholics doing out here, knocking on doors? And it's like, but I found it important for us to be able to get out there and just, show our faces and, show that, we wanted to support the community and in any way that we could. And, again, try to, to address the stigma, but also, to say it's a new moment to move into.
Derek, you're the man that's on the scene and out in the neighborhood too. I'm curious if you see, it's new needs coming. We're hearing a lot of around the country about the need for refugees and the hope. How have you seen the generational change? The generational trauma that was in the neighborhood. How have you seen St. Agatha's make a difference in that?
It's been really extremely great. Due to the fact that North Lawndale have I don't know, is it 200 plus churches or 100 plus churches?
About 150, yeah.
Okay, so
mainly
we have
right.
We have 250 churches, and we're gonna go back to my time, and even to today's time. Throughout the years, these churches supposed to be representing the word, but unfortunately, churches in the community are closed. So I say this to say that the big change that I see that happened to St. Agatha, and we could just go back to me that I was brought up in the Baptist church, where the church only opened on Sundays and bingo nights for Saturdays. So the change that St. Agatha brought was, and I sorry for keep going back and forward, but I'm just looking at myself because I was in a gang. I stood on the corners and nobody reached out to help. And when things got chaotic, they will come out and they'll march. They'll get the local politicians. They'll get the local police. And they'll get our grandmothers and all the above to march against us and not provide no type of source of help. So what I realized, like, that was an act of war. And with the change with St. Agatha, the difference is, like, somebody like Father Larry see somebody like myself and invite them in. And not pointing the fingers with no judgment, and I see this constantly where he'll take young people's and take a risk on them. Like he took a risk with me. The risk with me was I was a gang leader. I was a former gang leader, a wholesaler of drugs. I played a big part of the violence in the community. But when I had decided to stop it all, a lot of police in the community didn't want that to happen. But the parish, St. Agatha, Father Larry stood behind me, supported me, and spoke up for me, which showed a difference from what we normally get from churches, parishes, or anything. Somebody's here to help. They're not here to point the finger. They're not saying that you're doing wrong. It's an exchange. The exchange is, how can I help you? And once I help you, what can you do to help somebody else? So the approach is, you know, being open. Like, for instance, I met a young man inside of Cook County Jail through one of my mentorship classes. He promised to come and see us. Well, he came and seen us. Well, while he was incarcerated, his brother got killed on the streets. And normally, you know, death is celebrated in our communities. So when if death is like a holiday, this death holiday came around when the young man brother had got killed. So what they normally do, they drink a lot, they smoke, they do drugs, they create chaos. But the parish was open at 12 a.m., which allowed myself to come and bring these young men inside the parish and show them how to celebrate. And how we celebrated was we bought a cake in memory of the young man's birthday. We had ice cream, and we did a peace circle on things to do to build ourselves. So instead of being outside partying haywire, we're doing a productive peace circle that was building. And in order to make that change, like we'll say St. Agatha is in one of the most destructive, has a destructive path inside of North Lawndale, right? But now if you're in the destructive path and you're trying to make a safe passage, how do you make a safe passage? You make a safe passage by going to the passage, inviting the passage, and creating ways as St. Agatha did. Like when the schools and everything shut down, they could have just shut everything down, ran no program, and just had church. But one of the sayings at St. Agatha is be church after church. And that approach is should be one of the most holistic examples that should be followed throughout the world.
Thank you. No. That message comes across, and that's great. Could you talk a little bit about I think there was a slide in there about the community elders that come through, and from that conversation that they had, what are the fruits that you have seen? Just providing a space for or just, you know, tell them the story about going and getting the people that have basically been the dream builders, those that were shut into their homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so go ahead, Derek.
Well, the difference with that, like, I'm gonna reflect again from how it was and how it is now. It's a big gap that's being bridged right now with the dream builders, to a point that in my days, all the elders called the police on the young. They stuck their nose up at the young. It was like they was turned against the young. But now, you know, with coming together and bringing elders and youth together to, you know, I look at it as putting the word community, no, putting the action community inside the community, creating the village and showing the example of what a village looks like. And you can't have a wise village without the elders, and you can't have a working village without the youth. So putting those two groups together is definitely a life changer.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And it's very communal because you provide a meal, correct?
Right. Yep.
And you bring
meals with everything.
Yep, meals. Yeah, very nice meals actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
food is key. You have the food, they will come.
right. Yeah. So, and I mean, not everybody sticks around for the relationship circles afterwards, but a lot of people do, and that's been great. And they've been passing the word and, you know, encouraging others to come as well. So, and at the same time, the mentors are, you know, involved, you know, have time, you know, during the week to just continue to engage people in the community, you know, and follow through on, you know, basic resourcing, but also, you know, like how do we build these relationships and, you know, figure out, you know, how best to, you know, really, I think, begin organizing and maybe even formal community organizing that is beginning to happen actually at the parish level, with connection to one of the local organizing groups called the Center for Spirituality and Public Life here in Chicago.
Wonderful. Was this one of the initial things that you did as far as to utilizing the space, was just to bring the community in, have meals, and then have the conversations?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a long tradition with St. Agatha of having what we call community dinners. That was, before I even got here. And, and so there's kind of been this sense of, you bring people together around food, what Jesus did, then, they will come. And, the key is then how do you engage at, at a significant enough level that they'll keep coming back, and continue to want to engage and all that. I mean, it doesn't necessarily translate into, more people in the pews, though that is, something that we need to look seriously at, as we continue, because with empty pews, we can't really afford to do anything else. And so it's, getting people into church and those sorts of things that are important. But, as I tell, I think every time I'm talking to a parent, parent group or whatever, it's like, give your child the gift of a faith and a faith community, and, if it's St. Agatha, great. If not, that's okay. Find a place where, you can, have a faith community that's going to not only support you, but actually encourage you to share your gifts as well. So, I just think the importance of, continue to raise that up. When the numbers in the community, I mean, since I've been here 17 years, we've surveyed every year the number of people that, have a church home. And, so 17 years ago, it was like, 80% did and 20%, did not. This year, it was like just the opposite, 20% do and 80% don't. And so there's just been a lot of falling away from organized religion and, for a lot of different reasons. But the key is, where are they finding community? Where are they finding that, and what's the base of, where you always are able to go back to, especially in difficult times. And that's for us in faith and, having a faith community to support us.
If space and resources were not a limitation, Derek or Father Larry, what would be something that you would add to your program?
That's a good question. For me, again, with the unified parish, I think it's, just finding a way to, expand, to, into, the other area where the other church is, in a more significant way. I think that's a piece of it. Again, I think, uniquely as church, it's like, what can we offer that others don't offer? Because we don't want to be a social service agency, but we do want to think about what is it that is not being offered out there that that could be, and and so some of that's around education, formation, religious and but life formation and those sorts of things. And the particular niche that we focused on is, that we've tried to focus is the whole family, because, you've got a lot of groups out there and a lot of funders out there that are going to, support youth, programs, and, a few that'll, do parent programs. It's very, very rare to see any funder that's actually looking at funding, whole family, outreach, because it's very relationship intensive, and it's, oftentimes hard to measure, impact and those sorts of things. But, but we have convinced a few foundations really to kind of like be open to that, even through some of the, state funding, to be able to do that as well. Just kind of an openness to look at, we're really trying to, look at a holistic model, that from a faith perspective, family is still very much the, key institution, building block in society. And so how do we support that in its many forms? How do we continue to, to support? So again, and the other thing I think that we have found is, church has a unique opportunity and unique way where no other institution has to hold parents accountable. So public school system, other systems do not have any way really to hold parents accountable. As church, we do, and it's not, and not just for our own parishioners, but it's for those who use our other services, our outreach services. So oftentimes, we've talked to people who benefit from our food pantry or from our, we do a significant Christmas outreach and other types of things, around Thanksgiving and Christmas. But to basically say to them, we're offering this to you. Would you, we would like you to go through this parenting class, this From Stress to Blessed class. And typically, I mean, invariably they say, okay, because they see it as kind of a giving back that ultimately it benefits them. But again, it's just, this sense of, that, just engaging where we can. And once you have them, Derek, you could probably reflect on this, after 2 or 3 sessions, you really have that. I mean, in terms of, that the ongoing connection that will be there, that can be there if somehow the group decides to continue on.
Derek, where do you see the need? I mean, going forward, especially amongst the youth, and I know you dealt with COVID and having to shut down and then opening back up.
Right.
It's a new world. And as far as where do you see the need, Derek, as far as amongst the kids, especially?
I just say the need is resources, funding, in order to hire other adults, just to spread and create the model to let it grow. It's just been us for so long, but just like adding on with so when I got there, there wasn't these other programs there. So it was just us, Father Larry as well, with the restorative justice. And then came the new school, which the new school added 150 plus children. Then came the other programs and the other programs that the add-on. So the add-ons would be, the need is just more resources to provide to grow a bigger staff.
And the kids, as you build it, they come? Is that?
Oh, without a doubt. The reason they come because of the credibility. Like I said, we're not just at the church, we're in the passage. So to be inside the passage, with credibility, they're already there. So we're already there. Again, we're not just in the church, we're in the community. So just like we do a lot of events as well. Father Larry didn't mention, like with back to school. We do bike rides, these big bike rides with 400 plus youth, organizations, community. So everything's already there. That I believe the focus should be on infrastructure now to grow it and ease a lot of tension that's going on.
Yeah, it just to clone both of you, but I appreciate your emphasis, Father Larry, too, on how do we it's meeting the need, but then also how do we give them the faith and the grounding to be able to face the next steps of adversities that life provides. So so any last thoughts or wrap up or advice for someone that is considering or has empty spaces? We've heard and we're hearing a lot about, especially with so many refugees coming in, about the needs, and then of course it parallels with so many facilities closing that we need to be open, and as church broaden our term.
Yeah.
Definition as far as what we do, how we can serve.
Right. I mean, I think in terms of that, I mean, that we've had the challenge in Chicago of, providing space for, housing and those sorts of things. And I think that's the, in a lot of ways, that's at the diocesan level, there's been a lot of empty rectories and convents now since we've done, a lot of, this merging and unification. So it's how do you maximize the use of that, in a way that is cost neutral, if possible. So, utilizing space that's belongs to the parish, but without the parish really having to be on for, the cost or whatever, of the program. And I think that's the ongoing challenge, how to do that. We've had a few parishes that have stepped up and are leasing, their convents or former rectories and, even a couple cases, former schools, for housing. So, I mean, the other piece of that too is, as we're looking at returning citizen work, housing for, even transitional housing for those returning from prison, and trying to, find ways to, to establish, I think housing in some way, for that particular population. And which, again, it's a challenge, but I looked locally at Catholic Charities that have funded, have built, elder housing and built veterans housing. It's like, and I posed the question to people at Catholic Charities, why not look at, transitional housing for returning citizens? And so looking at all that.
It is so needed, and that's the number one thing that we hear continuously. And we've also been blessed this last couple of months to be able to lift up some of the programs, the APAC model, and more of a beloved community, and some of the Catholic reentry models that could be utilized. And the beauty of it is it transforms parishes too, as far as the people that it's in their facilities. And I hope that's been your experience within your parish. That is, they've been able to engage with some of these programs, and the transformation of your parishioners.
Exactly.
Is that something you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's like, I think the key is, again, how do we engage parishioners, especially younger parishioners, in doing this? And for the young adult population out there that's not connected to church necessarily, engaging them in some way. And I think the challenge is, if they see a church actually doing something, in terms of issues that they're concerned about, there's a tendency to say, maybe I need to look closer at this. But until there's a relevancy for them, I think that's going to be it's a continued challenge. The other piece of it too, I think, Aaron, is the importance of the mental health issues and trauma, which is so deep and embedded. And, there's so many forces of trauma, work just in society in general, but particularly in the Black community. So it's how do you create a space where people can talk about that, whether it's, from professional counseling or just to have someone that they can come and sit and talk to. Not everyone needs professional counseling. Sometimes they just need someone to listen, and be open. So, looking at all the ways that we might do that. So, I mean, we've kicked around the possibility of maybe developing elders, a group that would be kind of like the grandmothers who, would just provide, some time to, if people want to come and, some of the young mothers want to come and talk, or, something just kind of to, for support that, they can do something like that. But, I mean, Derek didn't mention that, but he is on the governing board for the local, free mental health center. And that's made a big difference because he's, clearly, could bring the message of, mental health to, population that probably needs it more than anybody else.
Very true, very true. I appreciate all that's been said, with all the, with the high issues of immigration in the news, it's the border. But the message is that the border is not just on the physical border. We all have our borders and all of our communities, and we need to be open and receptive to looking and listening to others. And there was one last question, and it was regarding a lot of the suburban parishes. They've got the spaces and the closing, but it's a transportation issue. It's how do you mix communities? But what I'm hearing from you is that even within our own enclave, there is a need for listening and for support and to creating communities where those communities through their strength can go outside and do good work in other places.
Right. Yep. 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 I mean, I think there's a lot. I mean, for suburban churches, again, the tendency is to say, well, we need money, and but the engagement for me for some of the suburban parishes is to pull on perhaps some of the professional expertise that people that in those communities, but also I think to kind of look at I've posted this a few times, just to the diocese to say, how about if some of our suburban parishes seem to have more than enough resources? How about if they'd actually funded a position, in one of the city parishes, for in terms of social justice or outreach or that kind of stuff, and essentially pay that person stuff, but also have that person communicating with the parish, with the suburban parish about what they're doing and how they're fulfilling the mission. And, I mean, it's a form of stewardship, but but again, making some connection with those who have, and I think who want to help, but can't necessarily. I mean, the extreme of that too is that I've suggested at times that any parish that is taking on a capital project needs to somehow include 10% of that, whatever they're earning on that, to give to an inner city parish for whatever they need. So
very much needed for Catholic education and for just the structure of the buildings. Yes, thank you.
Exactly. Yep.
Thanks for lifting that up. There was a comment, not turning it in doing this work, making sure it doesn't turn into kind of white saviorism, but it's I view that as that's our whole mission at CPMC, is to teach and train people about why are you doing this, and then also to move people into that this is a ministry of accompaniment and meeting people where they were at. And it is very much like both of you have stated, constantly the whole boat gets lifted. We're being present to another person. Through that, we are enriched and we are called to grow. And it's that gift of encounter and growth. Yep. We want to thank you both for all of your amazing work. And we ask God to bless you both and give you the strength to continue. And for Derek, for your Juneteenth event to be successful this year. You might give a real quick commercial and then we'll go to our commercials. You're on mute, Derek.
You're on mute, Derek. Oh.
I know he's moving. He's
I don't know what he's doing, but okay.
Yeah, I think he's in the car.
Okay, I was trying to hit the button and my phone's just doing everything. Definitely appreciate you guys. I'm praying for everybody as well, and just thank God just for allowing me, or not thank God for allowing me and choosing me. And I'm gonna do the best that I can with that understanding of everything that I do.
Well, thank you. We appreciate all you do, and you know that you're in our prayers for support ongoing. And thank you, Father Larry, for sharing your 17-year journey at St. Agatha's. And we ask God to bless you in your next endeavors as you move forward with a little bit of a transition in the upcoming days.
Yep.
So,
thank you. Thank you.